Welcome back. In this video, we're going to be talking about two different upgrades I made to the Corrupted Influence Precon. The first upgrade is going to be a smaller upgrade where we kind of just take what the deck is already doing and we're going to make it do that a little bit better. And one thing I noticed that was missing from this deck was repeatable card draw. And Excel can provide pretty good card advantage for us, but I don't want to rely solely on Excel. In order to make room for the repeatable card draw, I ended up dropping a lot of the one-shot draw effects. Cards like Caress the Phyrexia, Night's Whisper, Painful Truths that are only going to be able to draw us a small amount of cards. If we are going to draw cards in with one spell, I prefer to do something like Shamanic Revelation, since we're going to be able to draw a good amount of cards off of this one spell. I didn't make too many massive changes to the creatures. I like the creatures that the Precon came with for the most part. We've added some of the new cards from 1 to this deck that aren't included in the Precon. Stuff like the Bloated Contaminator, Necrogen Priest, and the Plague Nurse give us a little bit of extra synergy with our toxic creatures. And then Skrell's Hide seems super interesting, so I wanted to throw it in there. It's also going to give our toxic creatures lifelink. I did add a few board wipe protection type stuff. Golgari Charm can be removable in addition to regenerating our creatures. We've also got the Unbreakable Formation and the Phyrexian Reclamation just to help us get some of our creatures back. That way we can kind of swing into people and not really care if they block or not. White Sun's Twilight is actually really sweet. It's a board wipe that allows us to be offensive at the same time and can also gain us some life. A good amount of stuff is stapled onto this card, and it also contributes to our toxic plans. And then finally, the other thing I wanted to really add to this deck is a little bit more oomph in terms of how we can close our game. So I added cards like Chroma's Will and True Conviction that can give our creatures double strike. Since increasing the power of our toxic creatures isn't really going to do much, I'd rather just hit them twice and then get double toxic triggers. And then Battle Royale will give us a little bit of extra push with the Infect, since that will stack with our toxic. And to round it out, I added a few more removal spells: Generous Gift, Infernal Plunge, and then made a few upgrades to the lands: Caves of Koilos, Brush lands, some just really cheap dual lands that can replace some of the kind of air ones like the Tainted Cycle and the Sungrass Prairie, the Signet type of lands. But overall, the additions will help us get into the red zone a little bit better, get a little bit more card advantage going, and we can finish the game a little more efficiently with these changes as well. If you're enjoying the video so far, be sure to leave a like. Now, this second round of upgrades is a pretty dramatic change. I think there's about 40 cards left in the Precon moving up from this. I wanted to make pretty substantial upgrades to help increase the power level of the deck, but I also wanted to kind of shift the direction that the deck was going in. So with the previous deck and with the Precon, there's a pretty heavy emphasis on these infect or toxic type of creatures that we can swing at players. In this version, I really just want to nick everyone for a poison counter and then just start proliferating and get a good amount of value out of Excel. So since I moved in this direction of a little bit more of a control game plan where we abuse Excel's ability, I really want to get Excel out on turn 3 pretty consistently. Now, Excel is 4 mana, which is actually really nice because we can add a bunch of the 2-cost ramp to our deck, and that gives us a really nice curve of turn 2 ramp, turn 3 cast Excel, and then on turn 4 we can possibly infect everybody and then start swinging, get a little bit of value with Excel. We've got the ramp trio: Nature's Lore, 3 Visits, Farseek, in addition to fleshing out the Signets and the Talismans. We've added this Frasca, which I think is super sweet. It's got that 0 that lets us, it's a little bit of card draw, but it's also going to proliferate, which is super great. And as you can see, I've reduced the creatures pretty heavily here. I wanted my creatures to provide a good bit of utility. Icarats in particular is going to be really important for giving everyone a poison counter so we can start proliferating them. And then we've upgraded some of the draw power in the deck with stuff like Toski and Timna. Yawgmoth can do a little bit of drawing. And you know, we don't have a super high creature count, but we will be casting our opponent's creatures with Excel as well. So we don't have to worry too much about not getting like full value out of these creatures. And then we've got the new Vorinclex, which is going to double the counters on everybody when we give them poison counters. And I did want to add a little bit more removal since we were playing that control game. Dam is super flexible, and Drown and Ichor can also be a removal that proliferates for us. And funny enough, we've actually added Infectious Inquiry back into the deck, and that's because of what our deck is now trying to do, where we want to kind of tag everyone with a poison counter. So the more cards we have that do this effect, the better. And we actually did add a few other cards that do this as well. We've added the Infectious Bite, which isn't like super great in terms of removal, but what we care about is each opponent getting a poison counter. We've got some really great upgrades in the artifacts. Of course, we've got the 2-cost ramp that we already talked about. Glistening Sphere is actually pretty decent, especially since it proliferates when it enters the battlefield. But the major upgrades here are the Strionic Resonator in addition to the Lithoform engine, which can both be used to copy the Trigger ability from Ixel. Tome of Legends for a little bit of extra card draw, and then Staff of Completion. I think this card is really strong in our deck. The main thing I care about here is being able to proliferate, but also you can pay 5 mana to untap it and then just pay 3 more life to proliferate it. If you have a bunch of mana up and your opponents are really close, you can just start proliferating over and over again. Seems really sweet. The upgrades to the lands were pretty straightforward, just kept it to in color fetch lands. We've got our shock lands, added the Triome and a few other upgrades here and there. There's a decent amount of money, but they're all straightforward. Thanks for checking out the episode, guys. If you want to see the Rebellion Rising Precon upgraded like in this episode, then be sure to check out this video here. And if I haven't uploaded that video yet, then check out this video.